Welcome to the Gospel Doctrine Helps class, where we provide you with insights, quotes, references, and help for your Gospel Doctrine class.
Resources, resources, resources. Today we're going to look at resources. What type of information, what type of books do I look at in order to prepare a Gospel Doctrine lesson or any Sunday school lesson? Well, it starts with the scriptures. The first step is to actually read the verses that are contained in the lesson. That is the most important part. If you just did that, that would be enough, because that is what the standard is in our church, in our religion, in our faith. The standard works are the most important thing because they are the standard. Nothing else will compare. Nothing else is doctrine other than the standard works. So that's what we need to conform to. That's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to read. So start with that. Now, as you are reading scripture, sometimes you come across things that don't make sense. Sometimes you run across words that you don't know the meaning to. Sometimes you just need a little help. So what I'm going to do is share with you the resources that I have used and continue to use to either further my own gospel study or to prepare a lesson that I give either in my home or at church. This year we are studying the New Testament. In the New Testament, there is a website that you can go to where you can find some resources for free. And that site is called feastingupontheword.org. I did not create the website. I don't own it. I don't get paid to refer anybody to it. But it's a great website because several gospel scholars have put their notes and that type of information on there. One of those, Ken L. Barney, has created a couple books. This is one of them. I have both of them. Footnotes to the New Testament for Latter-day Saints, edited by Kevin L. Barney. This is volume 1. There's also a volume 2. You don't have to get these books. These books are free in a PDF format on that website, Feast Upon the Word. And what they do is there's certain words or certain elements where you will get a footnote that'll give you additional meaning. And remember, these are for Latter-day Saints. So these are for us. These are for us. They're geared towards us. They help us understand the New Testament. So that's one resource that I would point you to. They also have a search feature that you can use to search through different lessons in the past that other people have put together. The next resource I would point you to is this book that I've used over the years by James Falconer, The New Testament Made Harder, Scripture Study Questions. This is a book that I've used over the years to come up with questions to get further light and knowledge as I've studied the New Testament. He has one for all of the 4 years of Sunday school. They do follow the Sunday school lessons, the old lessons, not the new Come Follow Me lessons, but they're still useful. He has in the heading sections what chapters he covers. He doesn't cover everything, but that gives us additional information that you can use. Again, all of that stuff is free. This is free at a website called timesandseasons.org. Times and Seasons was newspaper that the early saints used in the Nauvoo period where the church published certain information. So if you go to that website or you simply search for James E. Falconer, you should be able to find his scripture study information online for free. You don't have to buy the book. If you want to buy the book, that's great. Again, I make no money off of any of the referral links that I'll put in the comment section below. I'll put all the links so you can get each one of these books if you want to. I'll also put the links to the websites if you want to go to those websites. None of them are affiliate links. I make no money. This is completely free. Everything I do to share the gospel is free. We ought to have it as a sacrifice. It ought not be something that we profit from. Otherwise, well, that leads to problems. Okay, the next book that I use on a pretty consistent basis is this one right here. This is My Doctrine, The Development of Mormon Theology by Charles L. Harrell. Now this is printed by Greg Koford Books. At the time I'm making this, it's still in print. You can see I have a little fletchet right there and a little note that I find that this is a book. Now let me tell you some of the methodology I use when I use this book. When I think there's either a topic, I look in the index and I look through the topic, or if there's a scripture that I'm looking at, in the back there is a scripture index. And this is a little, this is something I use on a regular basis. And if you can see any of these scriptures here, these scripture references, you can actually go to them if you're studying, for example, 1 Kings 4:20. Well, he references that verse on page 316. You can jump to that page and you can see the context in which he writes about it. I find this to be very, very thorough. I find it to be a good scholarly work. So that's another one. He doesn't have a website that I'm aware of that's free, so if you're going to have to pony up a few bucks if you're going to buy that book. All right, the next book I have is Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith. This was produced, the copy I have here is from 1976 by Deseret Book Company. This was edited by Joseph Fielding Smith, who at the time was the church historian. As you can see, I have several tags on there. This book, I think, is indispensable. Why? Because it's the teachings of our founding prophet, Joseph Smith. So I think those are, that's a great resource to use. Now, if you talk to other scholars, and I'm not a scholar, I'm just a lay person, I'm nobody, I'm just like you. Well, maybe you are somebody. If you're watching this, you probably are more important than I am. But here's another book that I've used. This, The Words of Joseph Smith, edited by E. Hatt and Cook. Now, this book is currently out of print, but I'll put a link in the description box where you can find it online through BYU for free. Okay, as it was published originally, I believe, by BYU Publishing, reprinted by Grandin Press. These two books work together, okay? And the reason I say that is because this is what would be the predecessor to this book. And when I say predecessor, it's because this book contains the actual note takers' accounts of Joseph Smith's Nauvoo discourses. And what does that mean? Well, you see, in history, if you talk to any historian, the best account of what happened in history is going to be found in the earliest extant text. Extant meaning surviving. The earliest surviving text will be the best resource, the best document to look at to find a true or more accurate account of events. So when you read Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, it was edited, it was compiled. There are things, for example, Joseph Smith's last General Conference discourse delivered in April of 1844. There were four accounts written by four different people. They handwrote it. Back then they didn't have recording machines, there were no video cameras, there were no tape recorders, so nothing got tape recorded. We don't have a verbatim transcript of that talk that he gave, but we have the four note takers' accounts. Now, as you can imagine, each note taker has some differences. It's not exactly the same. And so in the Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, you have those four accounts amalgamated or put together and compiled, edited. Okay, all of the accounts are edited. But in the teachings or in the words of Joseph Smith, what you have are all four separate accounts of that talk separately, and they're in the same writing. So if there's typos, if there's mistakes, if there's cross-outs, you get all of that. So you get the earlier text, which why scholars would say the words of Joseph Smith is more important, is better. If you go to buy this, because it's a rarer book, it costs a little bit more money. Although there is a Kindle version available, which has a search feature, which you can definitely use. That can be handy sometimes. So I would strongly recommend that you use those. Those are great. If you want to, this is another one, Scriptural Teachings of Joseph Smith. What this is the teachings of the prophet Joseph Smith, but they've gone through and they've added a scripture index to it. So what that means is, just like that other book, you can look at this, and if there's a verse that you want to see if Joseph Smith wrote anything about, you can definitely do that. Now, because we're in the New Testament, a couple other books that would be very pertinent. One here is Julie Smith's book. It's called Search, Ponder, and Pray, A Guide to the Gospels. This just covers the four synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And what she does is she gives you questions. You know, what does this symbolize? Why does this happen? Do you think this means this? You know, and it basically is similar to what Falconer put forth, which is questions to make you think. And I think she does a very good job with that. So that is another one that I don't believe is available free online. She has put some stuff on some blogs that are out there, but Julie Smith's book, again, that's put out by Greg Koford Books. A newer book that just came out last year, this is Whom Ye Say That I Am, Lessons from Jesus of Nazareth. This is put together by James W. McConkie and his wife Judith E. McConkie, and this is written a very scholarly type of work. They look through some Christian resources, and they try to give us a more accurate view of a historical Jesus. I don't find it to be bad at all. I think it's good. I have read some of the texts that they quote to or cite to, and so for me it's somewhat of a rehash, but that's okay. Nothing wrong remembering the things that you may have read before. Here's some other things that have come out recently. This is here the New Testament commentary. This is specifically the Testimony of Luke, put out by S. Kent Brown. He's a professor there at BYU, been around for a long time. He might even be emeritus by now. Yeah, he's an emeritus professor at BYU. This is really good. It goes through verse by verse of the entire book of Luke. I don't believe that's available online for free. I think you can get it on Kindle if you want. Another resource, and this will be the last resource that I point to at this juncture, which is Adam Clarke's commentary. He has an entire commentary on the entire Bible. There's been some new work put out by BYU that suggests that Joseph Smith may have had access to this and even used this commentary when he did his Joseph Smith translation review. But here is just one volume of Clarke's commentary. This is volume 5, Matthew through Acts. It is hard to read. I'll show you just some of the pages here. It's as you can see, the text is not always very clear, and sometimes it's italicized. He uses Roman numerals, and so I got this copy used from Benchmark Books in Salt Lake. I'll leave a link for Benchmark. Benchmark Books, I'll put a plug in for them, and of course I'm not getting paid to do this. I do use them because they can find books. They can find rare and antique books. They've had first edition copies of the Book of Mormon if you're into that type of thing. But if you have a question, the staff over there is very knowledgeable. If you say, hey, I'm looking or I'm interested in this aspect of doctrine or this aspect of church history or this aspect of the scriptures, they can very well point you in the right direction. They can tell you what you should be looking at, what the best resources are. So I've used them more than once to find additional books on information or topics that I've been studying. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. I'll make another one about the apps that I use on my iPad or websites that you can go to, because these are pretty much just the hardcover books that I use on a pretty regular basis when I'm studying the gospel. Oh, there is one more. I would be remiss if I did not tell you about the other editions of the Bible that I use. I do have a copy of the New English translation, and of course, as you see here, it says it has over 60,000 footnotes. So I do use this to give you an idea. Here is just a random page that I'm opening up. Those are the footnotes right there. And then that's the scriptures up at the top. You see, they give you the footnotes. They help you to, how is it that they came to determine that word in Hebrew or that word in Greek meant what it is. And so whenever I have a question about interpretation, I usually look at that. I also use this Bible here, the New Oxford Annotated Bible with the Apocrypha. I look at that. And then, of course, the Joseph Smith translation. Again, there's links for these things online as well, so you don't necessarily have to buy them. But looking at different translations can help us get further meaning, because the Old Testament and the New Testament, as you are very well aware, were not written in English. They were written in Greek or Hebrew, and so we need to understand those languages, or we need to understand how the translators came to those meanings so we can get the same meaning out of those verses, because sometimes those words in Scripture, they don't mean what we think that they mean. And so we need to put careful, ponderous, and solemn thoughts into our Scripture study. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching. If you have other questions that you would like answered, whether it's about a specific gospel subject, doctrine, church history, or something like that, please leave a comments in the section below. It really does help when you're talking to a video camera. I don't get to see your expressions. You can't just on the spur of the moment raise your hand and talk to me, but you can leave a comment in the section below, and that would help me help you. So please put your comments in the section below. Any questions would be most helpful. Thanks for watching.